Hello, everyone, and welcome to Another Mother. This is a parenting and faith podcast by My Spring Harvest with me, Emma Borquay. I am a mum of two. I've got Ezra, who is 4, and Hallie, who is 1. And I guess, like many of us have experienced in life, it can be unpredictable. You know, life is full of ups and downs and curveballs, especially when you've got kids. But life is better when we do it together. So in season 1 of Another Mother, I got to speak to 9 incredible people to hear about their parenting experiences, to learn from them, to share in their wisdom. So now we are back for season 2, and I am continuing to seek the answers to my never-ending questions and also exploring some really interesting topics with my guests. So today I am very pleased to be joined by the wonderful Lucy West.
Hi.
Hello,
Good
Lucy.
to be here.
It's great to have you. So my intro for you, Lucy, because you have quite a long list of things that you do. Lucy is an author, a speaker, a singer, a primary school teacher, a photographer, and a mum of 2.
Yeah.
So
not all at the
life.
same time.
Okay, just like intermittently, a bit
over the years, yes.
Yes. And you recently wrote your book, The Wait, which is an incredible book that I've actually just finished reading. And it was such an incredible way of you telling your story. And I really got into it. Like it's so descriptive and personal, but also there's so much in it that you can really take from, even if you're someone who hasn't experienced that for yourself. It's your journey of infertility, and it's how it's something that actually happens with so many people, and knowing how to be a friend to someone who's going through that, or how to be a sister to someone in that position, or if that is a position that you ever find yourself in, just knowing that there's someone else that has experienced it and gone through it, and it was a long time for you. So I don't want to ruin the story by telling it myself, but I think you're actually an exceptional storyteller. So I would love it if you could start with maybe just giving us your overview of the book, just telling it in your words.
Yeah, I really wanted it to be, I mean, it's scary that it's like this, but I really wanted it to be very raw and very, very honest, because I think the more honest you are, the more you're sort of giving other people permission to join you on that journey and to find hope in the journey, in the pain, I guess. So I sat down with all my old journals, because I used to journal all the time. And it was a hard few months, I have to admit, because there was a lot of tears and a lot of processing things as I went through it again, and just saw like this little girl in pain almost, just so much pain. But I also saw how far I'd come when I was writing it as well, and what I believe that God has done in that journey and in my life through it. So it was really amazing for me to see, just to see that sort of process in me, and very cathartic, I guess, to write it. So I thought, well, actually, I've gone through all this now. God, you're going to have to use this book to help other people. But the actual, do you want to know the actual what we went through? Sorry.
No.
It was 8 years basically. Myself and my husband, it's unexplained infertility. So the doctors told us that we could be pregnant any time, and it's never, ever happened. And yes, it's been an incredibly painful journey, because we were desperate for homegrown kids, if you like, birth kids. But actually the end is magical, because we've ended up adopting 2 children, and there's quite an age difference between them. There's 7 years, but they really do love each other. They argue. They still argue. It's not perfect, but they really love each other. And we can just see that even though we don't believe God threw the worst of that pain on our shoulders, we believe that he has pulled plan A out of that pain. And plan A is these 2 children, these beautiful adopted children.
Wow. That's incredible. And like you said, it's probably only at this point in your journey that you're able to look back and see, okay, what really didn't make sense, and what is by definition unexplained, actually now through God you're able to make some kind of sense in it in some way, where you look at where you are now with your lovely family, with your kids. But still doesn't discount the pain of the journey and the reality of what you experienced, which must have been so tough to be going through that through the years and years, because it's easy to like look at something and you think, oh, okay, like 7 years, 8 years, and in your head you think, oh, okay, but living it, that's a long time.
Oh my gosh, yeah, a couple of months feels a long time sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think I often talk about our journey being so ironic because we fostered children. So we, in our family, there were 107 children and young adults came through our house, and some of them were pre-adoption babies, and it was so lovely being a part of that, and really difficult as well at times. I won't go into that. But actually, the irony of it is that I've ended up not being able to have my own children, and my sister has gone through the same thing. She has adopted one child. My parents, so they've not got any grandchildren who are blood grandchildren. And that might sound to some people like, well, what's the issue with that? But actually it was quite a big process to go through, a grieving process. And we've adopted as well. My brother and sister are adopted, and he's got his own blood son, which actually was very healing for him, because to be adopted and then have his own birth son was just a real healing process. So God's done some great stuff in the midst of, oh my gosh, why has this happened to our family? There's been a lot of questions and a lot of pain, if I'm honest.
In your book, which is here actually, let me just show this. Here we go. This is the lovely book. But in the prologue of the book, you write very descriptively, and I think there might actually also be a journal entry in there from you, where you talk about you were kind of sitting in the corner crying, like letting all of your tears out for that day so that you could get back up and go out into the world like nothing had happened, or like nothing is going on for you. And I think that can be an experience that so many people would relate to, where you just feel like the world keeps going but your world inside is crumbling, or you're going through so much pain and so much difficulty, but there feels like this pressure in society, in the world that we live in, just the human experience, I guess, that we have to get up and go out and put a brave face on and not let other people be impacted by the pain that we're experiencing, which is so hard to do. And you also quote this wonderful quote from Zoe Clark Coates, MBE, who we're actually having on the podcast soon.
Brilliant.
So it'll be brilliant to talk to her as well. But she writes something about putting up kind of glass walls, and that can be a bit what grief feels like, where you're one side of the wall and you're watching the world go by at normal pace on the other side of the wall, and you're there like, everything's slow motion, like how do I move, how do I keep going? So I guess for you, as you sat for many years on that side of the glass wall, feeling like I'm going through so much pain, and I have to watch the world go by and carry on, and I have to watch friends have babies and other people have like
friends.
Exactly, like going to baby showers and doing all of that stuff, wanting to be so happy for people and seeing everybody else's lives kind of go at this different pace, but you're sitting there like, what's going on with my life? How did you feel like that wall was ever able to kind of start to disintegrate or break down through getting into things like what you've written in your book about how you really got into photography and, I don't know, finding things on your side of the wall that you can control almost to make that experience a bit better?
That's a good way of putting it, actually, just finding things that you could control, because life felt so out of control. And actually a difficult part of it is that a lot of the journey I was on stage, and I was performing and putting on this brave face, and even like so many people were relying on me for just help or counsel or whatever. So, young people would come up and say, this and this is happening in my life, I don't know what to do. And it was like the most menial little thing. But I'd be, I'd switch into, oh my goodness, let's talk about this. Do you want to pray about it? And it was a privilege to be able to do that. But inside, there were days when I was screaming, thinking, I am grieving, deeply grieving. And you're telling me about broken nails and, whatever it is, your homework's a bit tricky. But actually, I did have to find things that you, as you said, that kind of kept me in control and gave me some sort of control. And I ended up having to leave the band Blush right when I felt I was flying, if I'm honest, and I hated leaving those girls. It was a really sad time, actually. So for anyone who doesn't know why I left Blush so quickly, that's it. I was in the middle of IVF. I just couldn't keep up with the process and tour around the country and be part of that fun, exciting thing that, you know, made me tick. So there was a lot of sacrifice in it. So actually taking back some control was really important. And I think that's what came with photography, because I was able to, I taught myself, and I just sat there and got Photoshop and spent hours, you know, editing and getting to a point where I really felt confident in myself. And it was actually a brilliant new beginning, if you like. And I ended up in LZ7 after that, but I had my photography business and singing. So it's crazy, isn't it? Because there was some beautiful things happening alongside the pain. So I think I talk about that in the book, how so often things do work together. The pain and the joy are just so interwoven, and you've got to try. It's almost a choice, isn't it? You've got to say to yourself, I'm going to try and see joy in today.
Yeah.
I need to spot the smile of God, because it's still going on, but it feels like it's not in your world.
Yeah.
So you've got to choose it, you've got to look for it, and you've got to grab it while you can, you know, when you're going through those difficult times.
Yeah, because there is a quote in your book that I love, and you said, hope and pain travel a very close road together. And I just think, even descriptively, that is so profound and something for us to remember. And I think that can actually be like a very difficult thing to experience, especially as a Christian, because we're often taught, just be hopeful, like God's got you, it's all going to be fine, like hope for the best, whatever. But it kind of sometimes feels like we discount the pain that we're experiencing. How did you find, for you, I guess, as a Christian, going through all of this? And it's a medical journey, so they're putting titles on things all the time. So even unexplained infertility, that's a medical title, and you kind of don't want to necessarily take things on as your identity, because we know that words are powerful, but then you have to accept certain realities of a situation, or that maybe, okay, this is going to be quite a painful journey, or there are going to be things that I didn't expect to happen here. How is that for you with your faith?
It was a real roller coaster, actually, with my faith. I've been brought up quite a be nice, be kind, be generous. And my parents are so amazing. I think because there were so many kids around, it was just be nice, be kind, be generous, and we love Jesus. You know, it was that kind of mix. And so actually, in the midst of it, even when I was struggling, I thought to myself, be nice, be kind, be generous, and love Jesus. And I think that really got me through, because I could have turned into a really grumpy, angry, bitter person. And yes, there were times when I've really shouted at God. And I tell people now, you know, people will say, I just don't feel like I can question God. I feel like that's being unchristian or unholy. And I say to them, hold on a minute, he's got big shoulders. You know, he loves you. He saw what was going to happen. He can see start to finish. If you have a little shout and a ball in the middle, he is not going to turn his back on you. He loves you far too much. And I think it really releases some people to say, oh gosh, you know, I am allowed to get this out now. I'm allowed to have negative feelings towards God, actually, and towards his plan. I don't believe God wants bad stuff for us, but I believe this is a broken world, and we are going to find our faith difficult in the middle of that. As you said, you know, the quote thing, you know, hope and pain. Some days it's so joyful. Some days you are racked with sobs, and because you're in so much pain, and you've got to sort of almost come to terms with the fact that God stays the same in the middle of that. That was my journey. It wasn't always easy to be there. You know, there were days when I just said, I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. I'm sure it would be easier if I'm not Christian, but actually the truth is it would not be easier if I wasn't a Christian, because I would have been completely alone. When I felt, you know, there was someone with me in the worst of it, definitely.
Hello everyone, I'm just interrupting this episode very quickly to let you know that bookings for Spring Harvest 2025 are now open, which is Very exciting. So you can head over to springharvest.org. You can check out all the accommodation options and you can see which site suits you best. Minehead, Skegness. The dates are 7th to the 11th of April in Skegness or 14th to the 18th of April in Minehead. So head over to their website, check it all out, see if you want to book on with your family, and hopefully I'll see you there next year. So yeah, I guess like talking about crying out to God and being like, God, why? And it being able to have those moments of reality with God. And yeah, you don't have to just sit there and say, thanks God for everything.
Yeah.
Like everything's great. Okay. Like let's carry on. Yeah. There's something that I've actually been kind of thinking a lot about recently and feeling quite frustrated with God actually in terms of like unanswered prayer.
Yeah.
And this is like the $1 million question really, isn't it? But it's like, why doesn't God just answer all of our prayers? Like there's the verse of like, knock and the door will be opened, ask and you shall receive. And we're taught that when we're young, and you kind of expect, okay, well, if I ask you to do this, God, then you will do it. Even just before we started recording, I was speaking to our videographer Matthew, who's just over there behind the camera. But we were talking about how like sometimes you'll bargain with God and you'll be like, okay, God, if you do this, I will like read my Bible every day for the rest of this year. Like I will tell everyone about you. I will tell the gospel story to everyone I meet. Or like, and then God still doesn't do what you're asking him to do exactly. And you're like, okay, what's the formula here? And then you kind of realize there is no formula. And the unanswered prayer is one of those things that maybe we do just have to hold as in our lifetime here on earth, and it will make sense when we get to heaven. I don't know. Have you come to any kind of conclusions on unanswered prayer?
Yeah, I mean, I've got bits and bobs definitely, but someone challenged me actually in it recently. She said in Hebrews, it's talking all about the greats who didn't see the answers, who didn't see it happen, didn't see it come to fruition. And then she said it, I went, oh my gosh, of course. Yeah, because I don't feel like we've got children, we've got adopted children, but I still never held my own child. I never felt pregnancy. I never got to breastfeed. I never got to feel even the lows of hormones. I never got to experience any of that. So actually, I've never seen the fruition of my prayers answered. I have children, but I've never seen all of the prayers come to be. So me and Lindz are living in a place of unanswered prayer. But actually, when you compare yourself to the greats in the Bible, so many of them lived with unanswered prayer that actually you've just got to get on with it. It sounds horrendous, but it's finding who you are in the midst of the unanswered prayer. I'm not, I'm not a lady who got pregnant. I'm not a lady who carried my own children, but I am a mother and I am a wife and I am a photographer or whatever. So it's looking at what you are rather than what you haven't got. I think that's the only way I think I can get through it, or I'd start concentrating too much on the unanswered bits,
Yeah. Well, no, that's a great way of looking at it. And I like what you said about Hebrews as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a good point.
I know that wasn't my first off, but yeah, when I heard it, I was like, of course, that's amazing.
Yeah. Wow, that is good. I saw this thing recently that was saying about, it was like this quote from some psychologists and they were saying about how like loneliness isn't the feeling of loneliness doesn't necessarily come from being alone. It doesn't come from sitting in a room by yourself, but actually loneliness comes from disconnection with the people around us, or feeling overlooked by people around us, or feeling like we can't engage with the people around us for whatever reason. And I know that for you, loneliness was a big part of your journey, and you're someone with like loads of friends, and people might look at your life and be like, how were you lonely? Like, you've got a husband, you've got a great community, you've got family, like all of this stuff. But loneliness was a really real thing for you, wasn't it? With kind of feeling on this journey like you were alone.
Massive. Loneliness was massive for me. And actually, this is one of the things that why I want a voice in this area, because there's a big stigma of shame as well. We put shame on ourselves. And, not everyone will feel this, but a lot of people who are going through this journey will feel shame and feel not good enough and feel like they've done a lot of things wrong. And, going back to unanswered prayer, well, is it me? Have I done something wrong, God? Am I being punished? All of these feelings. So that shame, I think that the weight of it can be so heavy that you feel very different from everybody else. So I looked around and I just thought, everyone else is doing what they're supposed to do. I'm the one that's messing up. I'm the one that's failing. And that brought on so much loneliness because I didn't feel like I could relate to, all these beautiful pregnant ladies around me. And, I write in the book, actually, there was a point where I just was like, right, if Hannah and Kaz now have a baby. Kaz was my sister and she was just going for adoption. That's it. Everybody in my community has either had a child or is pregnant with a child. And literally 2 weeks later, Hannah announced that she was pregnant. And then my sister announced that she'd adopted. And even though I was so happy for her because she'd been through this horrendous journey herself, oh my gosh, the pain of seeing my niece the first time, because it was what I wanted so much, was actually, the bittersweet, that pain and joy all mingled in.
You went through a period of, I guess, seeing loads of your friends having babies. And that's definitely, I guess it's an age thing as well, isn't it? Where there's a certain time of a woman's life, probably like a decade span, where it will just be filled with a lot of babies and new beginnings for everyone, and you're kind of there feeling like, oh well, I'm just wrestling with this really hard, painful journey, and everybody else is and you want to be happy for everyone, and you are happy for everyone, like you want to be that friend that is like, yay, like come and cuddle the baby, and I'm sure you are, but it doesn't discount from the pain that you were experiencing. And I guess as a friend, if you know that your friend is going through that, through an infertility journey, what is helpful or what is even unhelpful maybe?
I don't think anybody went out to hurt us, but the comments, are you guys thinking about children yet? Having children, look at you on the stage, having so much fun. Start thinking about a family, for goodness sake. And I'd be like, I have literally just reapplied my makeup because I've cried it all off, So there were very unhelpful things said. Definitely never ask someone when they're thinking of having a family unless you are 100% sure that they are in safe territory. Okay, if they are getting a little bit older, never go there. Okay, unless you're really close to them and you're having chats and they're deep conversations. What's your thoughts on a family? I'd love to know where you're at with having children. It's more being very gentle and sensitive with how to start a conversation. I think invitations, because we kept it quite quiet, we'd just get put on group texts and group, WhatsApps and whatever. So it'd be like, here's another baby shower. We're so excited to have you here. And I had apart from being able to say, I'm so sorry, guys, I'm busy that day. That there was no other way. There was no way to hide. So I think if someone's going through it, then message them separately, definitely, and say, look, this is what's happening. We'd love you to come, but we fully understand if you can't be there. Fully understand. It's embracing that pain, but saying, if you want to meet up and have a coffee and chat some other time, then I'd love to do that. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to meet up at the baby shower, whatever that is difficult. And it's just, I think it's very hard, obviously, if people are keeping something private and secretive, it's very hard to know. This is why, another reason why I want it to be out in the open. I want it to not be a taboo subject of shame. Yes, if you're hurting and you don't want to talk about it, but I don't want it to be a secret.
Yeah.
Because if I know a friend is struggling, even if they never want to talk about it, I can just text a little heart one day, or I can just say, how's your day been, whatever it is. And if they don't want to answer, they don't answer. So it's lifting this taboo. So I guess also in a country where we're so bad at talking about grief, these people are grieving. We were definitely going through grief.
Yeah.
So it's being open to be awkward as well. Don't cross the street if you know someone's going through something. Don't look away, keep eye contact, give someone a hug and just say, I really love you. You know, and they might break down in tears, but don't be awkward. Just try and get over that awkwardness. Because I think when someone is grieving, the thing that compounds that grief is people turning their backs or not inviting you or doing things that are insensitive. So it's just being a little bit more aware of. In fact, I'll just quickly say this. Somebody said in America, she said, right, think about anyone that you know who's going through or has had breast cancer. And we might know 2-3 people. And she said, well, 1 in 15 people go through breast cancer. 1 in 15 women go through breast cancer in America. 1 in 6 people go through infertility issues. So she said, that just hit me. I was like, okay, well, if we can name 2 to 3 people that we know who've gone through breast cancer, there will be more than that going through infertility issues. And yet we probably can't name any of them. Maybe one in the past who's started talking about it, like me or whatever. But actually that shows you the depth of what people are going through in private. Yeah. So we need to be able to be less awkward and really embrace people that look like they might be going through something like this.
Was there, for you, the reason that you kept it private on reflection, was that because of this, like, it was too hard to talk about at the time and you didn't want to like break down in front of people? Or was it just, were there other reasons that you wanted to keep it private?
Well, we were on stage, so I didn't, like, people wanted to know everything about us. So it was the control thing. I was letting out what I wanted to let out. But also we did have a great group of people, not a huge group, but a group of people that we really trusted. And most of them actually were slightly older and they had teenage children. So they were very safe. And I think that is what kept us going. You know, when we first had the first IVF go wrong, we had, you know, a few hours at home of just trying to pull ourselves together. But there was this lunch date and we just said, right, can we just come in the evening? Are you going to still be together? And they went, yeah, that's fine. Just come when you can. And I remember this guy opening the door and he just embraced us in a hug and gave me a kiss on the forehead and just went, love you guys. This is a safe place. Come in. You know, and just gave us food. And we didn't really talk about it until later on. But it was just what we needed. Yeah. It was just love. And actually it was laughter. We didn't crack any jokes, but we were laughing, you know, with this beautiful group of people. So I can see real joy and healing and beauty in the middle of that pain as well, because we chose the right community to look after us, you know.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, it's not information for everyone to know.
No.
And actually when people do know more about you, sometimes you also then have to understand that people are going to try and encourage you and probably say the wrong thing.
In the wrong way.
Especially if they're not that close to you. I think people are very well-meaning, but sometimes things can cause more pain than help. So yeah, you're right. It's so important to have like a safe community of people around you. And I'm so glad that you found that. You mentioned your IVF journey a little bit there. And I was actually, when I was reading the book, it was something I hadn't thought about before, that you said that it was something you had to consider with IVF, that there might be opinions about doing like a scientific approach to starting a family. And I just had never thought about the fact that some people would think that that's not, like, I don't know what you should do as a Christian. I don't know. Did you come against anyone that actually felt
I think
that?
things are changing a lot, definitely. But yeah, there was one person who was very Catholic, stoic Catholic, and he actually did question and said, is this what you want to do, guys? Just challenged us, really. And I mean, it's good to be challenged, I guess, but we disregarded.
Yeah, fair. You're like, thank you for your question. Moving on.
We'll put that in the cupboard.
Oh dear. You've spoken a little bit about Lindz, your husband, and that you were in LZ7 for a little while, which is the band that Lindz is the front man of. Is that what you would call it?
Front man.
The founder?
The noisy one.
The
founder.
That he is LZ7.
Yeah.
It's Lindz. And in your book, you've both, he's written a part of the book as well.
Yeah.
And that's because you realized that you actually experienced the same thing but in different ways, and maybe that's being a man and a woman, or maybe that's just two different humans experiencing something in a very different way. And I guess with you, it's a lot of the idea of like having a pregnancy and like feeling it inside your body, and maybe there's other things for him that were more difficult for him in a different way to you. So what kind of things had you learned about each other in this journey, or on reflection had you learned about how you handled it differently?
Yeah, that's a good question. His chapter is called The Weight, Weight, because he talks a lot about how men often feel the weight, the actual physical weight on their shoulders, watching their wives or partners going through this. And I think at the time, I was just very grateful for him being quite a lot more positive than I was. Like when we went for an appointment with IVF, and the guy said, right, I'm going to put you on the list. That'll be an 18-month waiting list. And I was like, what? 18 months? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is forever to me. And yet Lindz came out going, brilliant, we're on the waiting list. That's amazing news. You know what I mean? So he wasn't always like that, don't get me wrong, but it was really helpful that he would see silver linings and stuff. But I think the flip side of that, when it hit him hard, when I saw him crying, that shook me almost more than it was shaking me, what I was going through. So his times of just utter brokenness and why are all my mates getting pregnant? What have I done wrong? Why can't I provide you with a baby? And, you know, these questions did come, not as much as mine perhaps flowed, but, you know, when they came, it just broke me. That was really tough. And some of what he was doing, like, you know, at the time I was sat in an appointment on my own, going through real horrible feelings of being told we might have to stop IVF because there's not enough eggs to collect or whatever it was. And I almost feeling annoyed with Lindz because he wasn't there with me. He was on tour. And then he'd tell the story and say, you know, I'd get this phone call from my wife, and then I'd have to go out and speak to all these kids about Jesus and about how amazing God is, and, you know, this hope in their life. And I've got this devastated, broken girl who I adore on the phone. You know, I'm so sorry, it sounds horrendous, doesn't it? But actually it was. And I never saw that perspective while I was going through it. So to hear him talk about it afterwards, you know, we absolutely realise that there's a need for men to be encouraged to talk as well. It's not just us women going through it. Men are really broken by this too. Men are desperate for children. They love having children around them. They love being dads. It's such a blessing to them, and it changes them in so many brilliant ways. So it is a difficult journey for them as well. So that's why I really wanted Lindsay's voice on it.
Yeah, it's so important, and it is a very interesting read, and you write differently as well, and it's really nice to have those two perspectives in one book. So yeah, I appreciate that you put that in there. And then now you have got your two incredible children that you mentioned through adoption, and how kind of healing has that been for you in terms of now having your family, even though it might not be exactly as you had imagined when you were, I don't know, a 15-year-old girl thinking what your family might be like. How's that been for you?
Yeah, actually, do you know the fact that you use the word healing? I do talk about this a lot, which I think is really important on people's journey, is that the main bulk of my healing came before the children arrived. And I think that's so important with our walk in God, is not... it's not sitting here going, when I have children, or when I get that rise, or when this happens, I'm going to feel better. I'm going to get my healing. Or when, you know, sometimes actually when I physically can walk, then I'm healed. Actually, it's not. I think it starts in your head and it starts in your heart, doesn't it? The healing has to start coming before the outward stuff.
Yes.
And that almost sounds obvious, but I think I went through a really deep time of grieving not having my own children, and that we'd start talking about adoption. So there was a sense of, I'm going to have children soon, and yet I went through the biggest grieving process before then, because of the birth children bit. But I'm almost grateful for that now. I'm grateful for knowing what it's like to truly grieve, and I'm grateful for there was a sense of I was starting on the healing road before they came, because then I just felt like I was a bit of a better mum, because I was so grumpy before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also they've brought so much joy. There are real challenges with adoption, and I'm actually writing a second book about adoption.
Are you?
So
Amazing.
and it's going deeper than I thought it would have to, if I'm honest. I won't go into details about that now. So there's many challenges with adopting children, but also I am a mum, and I do have 2 beautiful children, and they are so right for our family. God has literally handpicked them and shoved us all together. It is brilliant how he does that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so exciting. I'm excited for your next book.
Thank you.
That would be great. Do you know roughly when it will be out, or is it TBC?
Just getting time to get it finished written.
Yeah.
And I really want, there's going to be a lot of testimony as well from other people who have adopted and had very different experiences. So it's going to be a real handbook of, I was just stood in a church service once, and I was like, God, I can't seem to find the information I need about adoption. It's all over the place on the internet. I can't find one place. And he went, well, that's why I need you to write a book about it.
Wow.
So it's not going to be the deepest scientific base, but it's touching on the science of connections in children's minds. It's touching on, it's talking about trauma and different testimonies and things like that. So it is going to hopefully be a bit of a handbook.
Yeah.
This is what you need to know, the practicalities of adoption, all of that.
Wow, that sounds brilliant.
Yeah,
That is
coming.
exciting. Oh, well, you're an excellent writer. So,
thank
I'm
you.
sure it'll be brilliant. And just lastly, before we end, obviously we spoke a bit about how you did keep your journey private for many years. And now you've got this incredible book that's actually I feel like I'm reading your diary. I'm like, this is I would not expect you to feel like a private person, reading this. I'm like, wow, you're really letting us in to the realities of what you experience. So what kind of was it that made you decide, no, now I'm going to tell my story, and now I want to talk about this?
Yeah, it's a funny one actually, because it was almost like a switch clicked in me, and I just suddenly was reminded of the fact that there are so many people still in that really horrible sense of, I talk in the book one point about those toys where you push the middle and the whole toy sort of collapses. And there were so many times when I felt like that, I literally couldn't hold my shoulders up. I was so weak and so low. And there's so many people that are there right now, just even today, just trying to get themselves out of the house. And just do normal life. So it just hit me full on in the face once. I was sitting there praying about it, and I thought, I just got to do this. I've got to bite my pride, get over whatever it is that's stopping me, and get this story out. And actually, as I started writing, the cathartic feeling of this is really good for me, it kind of pushed me into thinking this is going to be good for other people. So it kept me going. And now for some reason, I know it's God, because this, as I said, this switch has flicked, and now I just don't want to stop talking about it. I really want to help people just to know that they're not on their own. I want it to become a less taboo subject. I don't want people to feel shame. I just want to help. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, well, you are doing a brilliant job of helping.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for just speaking so honestly with us today as well.
So welcome.
We appreciate you. And you can get the book The Wait from Amazon or
any good Christian bookshop as well, but Amazon's a good one.
Bookshop. There you go. So thank you so much, Lucy.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Another Mother. Don't forget to subscribe for future episodes, and please do help us spread the word about this podcast. You can share it with your friends, with other parents that you know, other mums, grandparents, or just anyone that you think might enjoy these episodes.